Salam and welcome to our Dispatch's YouTube channel for Somali-related news in English. Please visit somaliddispatch.com. My name is Abdillahi Hassan. Somaliland authorities have yet shut down another media house in Hargeisa called CBA TV. This latest move follows a series of arrests of journalists and revoking the BBC license to operate in Somaliland. This latest move also comes amid a political tension in the country relating to the presidential elections slated for November, which seems to be delayed. The opposition parties have held recently massive demonstrations that led to deaths and are vowing to continue in that vein. To better understand the current situation in Somaliland as it relates to the media and freedom of expression in that country, we have contacted Abdillahi Hassan, the Deputy Director of CBA TV. Abdillahi Hassan, welcome to Somali Dispatch. If you can start us off by giving us an overview of the current situation in which the media works in Somaliland would be great.
Thank you, Abdillahi, for having me. First of all, I have to point out that media in Somaliland and journalists in particular have to contend to work in a very challenging circumstance. It is of the utmost precarity, to be honest. Arbitrary arrests are plenty. And before the protests that were precipitated by the current political crisis, over 90% of the people who were arrested arbitrarily were journalists. So media houses are frequently shut down summarily without due process. And journalists are also arrested without due process. One day, in the middle of this year, there were 11 journalists who were arrested while they were doing their jobs. So that I think will give you an idea of the environment in which Somaliland media operates in. It seems that there is a concerted policy of this government to silence the media, silence journalists. They even have a monitoring unit that its sole purpose is to monitor how journalists are reporting and to take actions against them if the government is not pleased with their line of coverage. So that's how journalists are working in Somaliland at this moment.
Yeah, that's disastrous to say the least, given the constitutional right under which citizens are allowed to have free expression and media is allowed to report news freely and fairly. But if you can follow that up with you painting a picture for our audience here for what sort of role CBA TV was and is playing in the media landscape currently in Somaliland.
Well, CBA, which stands for Outcoburg Africa, was established 4 years prior, and in the meantime, it has successfully become one of the leading organizations in Somaliland, media organizations in Somaliland. If it's not the first, it is maybe second, and all of that is really due to CBA's emphasis on social programming in literature, education, health. It is professional news coverage on all things that matter to the people of Somaliland and to all our audience across the Somali territories and beyond. And we have successful programs that have been running for 4 years, literary programs. And for instance, the Qalinka program, which promotes literacy, reading and writing both. We also have programs that foster a collective memory of the people of Somaliland, which is really great, very helpful in establishing the identity of this country. So I think all of these have contributed to CBA occupying a prominent place in the media scape in Somaliland.
Right. Prior to the shutdown, what sort of a relationship did the CBA TV management have with authorities in Somaliland? Even the president talking about some TVs that are not portraying a positive light on Somaliland. What sort of a relationship did you have with authorities in Somaliland prior to the shutdown?
Well, it is as the same relationship that all journalists have and all media organizations have with this government, which is quite an easy relationship to be frank. And the government closely monitors all television stations, newspapers, even social media, and they summarily note their displeasure when that arises. So it fluctuates between indifference and to outright hostility, to be honest. Sometimes um, over the last year, and this relationship has grown very awkward. And it started with legal harassment, small-time harassment, officials telling us in informal way that they are not pleased with our coverage. And then I think it was in May that a minister charged us publicly without any substantiating evidence of serious crimes, really, of illegality. And the it was very unfortunate that when we tried to sort out that misunderstanding with the minister through the court, it was more than misunderstanding, really. It was an outright attack on us, slanderous statement is. When we try to sort out that, the legal procedure has just dragged on and dragged on. And that has gave us an idea of how the government had views us and as CBA TV and the media organization is more in common, that it was more hostile and getting more hostile by the day.
Yeah, it's perplexing given Somaliland touts itself a democracy, a shining beacon in the Horn of Africa, in Africa in general, and in the third world countries. The constitution gives the guarantees of freedom of expression and freedom of the press. The president was recently in the US touting democratic gains that Somaliland made. But contrary to all of those, the crackdown on media arrests on individuals who speak their mind about what's going on in Somaliland, given the current political situation in the country. Record number of journalists arrested, even traditional leaders arrested. In the big picture, what do you think all of that is going to do to Somaliland's quest for full independence from Somalia?
Well, it's not really helpful. It's quite detrimental to that effort, to the national effort of gaining international recognition, because one of the best selling points of for Somaliland is that it is, as you have said, a beacon of democracy in a very unstable and undemocratic region. But more tellingly, more dangerously, as I view it, is that it really undermines the building blocks of Somaliland. If you can recall, in 1990, there was the last SNM conference before the liberation of the country. Freedom of press, democratization was heavy points in that meeting, really, and all through Somaliland's struggle for regaining its independence. So the actions of this government are not jeopardizing Somaliland's quest for recognition itself, but also it is eroding Somaliland's self-image in itself, Somaliland's self-justification for why it exists, how Somaliland justifies its people and that it should exist. And that's more dangerous than even jeopardizing the quest for recognition.
Lastly, Abdullahi, thank you for your time here, but what are the next moves for your organization?
Well, we have three parts actually. We try to work on three tracks simultaneously. The first is in that we have to ensure the continuity of service to our public, because that's the reason we exist, to inform, to educate and educate the public and to lead a national discourse, especially at this critical juncture of our history. So we will do our best efforts is geared towards sustaining our broadcast, sustaining our services. And thankfully, we are helped in that regard by our international peers in Mogadishu, in Nairobi, in Lagos. So I think we will be doing great in that front. The second thing is that we are trying to talk with the Ministry of Information itself and just review the dates and convince them that their charges are baseless. We have actually written a letter, a response letter to them, submitted to them this day, and we are justifying our position and telling the ministry that their action was quite reckless, quite baseless, and lacks any justification, logical justification. The third the third front is the judiciary. We are working on submitting an appeal to the courts against the ministry's action, and hopefully that will succeed.
All great efforts. I appreciate you joining us here today. Abdillahi Hassan, the Deputy Director of CBA TV, joining us from Somaliland. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Abdillahi, for having me.
You're most welcome.